In this podcast, you will experience wisdom, advice, and stories from creatives all over the world. Your host is the award-winning Amani Roberts, who is a DJ, music producer, professor, author, and undercover gamer. On the show, we love to share the stories of creative professionals, especially people who have gone from the corporate life to the creative life. Once again, welcome to the Amani Experience Podcast.
All right, I would like to welcome Courtney Stanley to the Amani Experience Podcast.
Hi, Amani. It's good to see you.
It is very good to see you as well. So we do a geographical check-in. So right now I'm in quarantine life in Redondo Beach, California. Where are you?
I am also quarantined, and I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is on the west side of the state, a little bit north of Chicago and east of Detroit.
Got it. Where did you grow up?
I actually grew up in Grand Haven, Michigan, which is a small, really cute, touristy beach town along Lake Michigan. And it's about 35 minutes away from where I'm living now.
All right. And then when you finished high school, you went to school Central Michigan, right?
I did, yes. Fire up chips. I went to Central Michigan University, and I studied hospitality and event management there.
You did study hospitality and event management there, but why did you change your major like 4 times?
Oh, did I tell you that? Yes. So I did. I actually, I went pre-med when I first went to university. I have always been super interested in medical sciences, especially the human body. And I just realized that I wanted to travel the world and meet a lot of people and have more flexibility than I felt like I might have in the medical field. And so I kind of fell into the program, actually. I was just in conversation with someone who was studying event management and hospitality, and she happened to mention that she was doing an internship at a castle in Ireland. And I thought that sounded pretty cool. So I started looking into the program, and my eyes were open to a whole new world, really.
Yep. And you haven't looked back since, correct?
Not really. I've definitely taken some side steps. I've had a lot of zigzagging in my career, and I'm someone who likes to try a lot of new things and just stretch and grow. And so I've definitely sidestepped, but I've always somehow either stayed in the industry or I've maybe teetered off a little bit and then come back full force.
Speaking of trying new things, where does your obsession with corn come from?
You have all my secrets. So I love corn. I really do. I've always loved corn as a kid. And there's actually this snack company called Love Corn that I am completely obsessed with, and you guys all have to try it. But I love it. If something on a menu has corn in it, I'm probably going to order that over something else.
Okay. Part of my quarantine life is I've perfected a really good cornbread recipe. So, it's on.
You need to share that with me. And you've been so good at sharing other recipes with me too.
Right.
I need that one.
Right. Okay. I'll write that down the notes. Stephanie Pettigrew Simmons says hello. So hello, Stephanie. Thank you for tuning in.
Hi, Stephanie.
Now, if you were going to summarize yourself where you are right now in 30 seconds or less, how would you do that?
So right now, I am a keynote speaker, I'm a podcaster, and I am a career coach who's grown up in the meetings and events industry. I have a tremendous love for supporting people and mentoring people, and I live my life by the idea that we all have a purpose and that we all have something to give to the world, and we all have the power to change the people around us for the better. So that's essentially what I built my speaking platform on.
Continue with the line of thought in terms of speaking. Who are some of the motivational speakers that you look up to or are like mentors to you?
So someone that I look up to, Brene Brown, like hands down, she is an amazing researcher and just a real person. And she didn't grow up wanting to be a keynote speaker, but she grew up a researcher, and she decided to share her knowledge on the stage with the world. And I think that what she has shared from her research about vulnerability and about being brave and daring to be bold, all of those things have really inspired me. And I like that she leans on research. So I like that it's not just an idea that she had or a thought that crossed her mind that she shared, but it's actually backed up by years of studying and dedicating herself to an idea that she had. So she's someone that I really look up to in terms of who would I want to be when I grow up. It would be somebody like Brene Brown, but an amazing friend of mine, Judy Holler, and I know you're friends with Judy too. Judy is awesome. And the reason why I love her story is because she did start in the hospitality industry and now she's, a best-selling author and she's a podcaster and she is where I would love to be. So she's someone that I've looked up to and have just tapped to pick her brain and she's been amazing in sharing her words of wisdom and really her best practices to how she's become so successful.
Exactly. Yeah. Big fans of Judy. Matter of fact, if you look right there, there's her book right there.
Oh,
We have her
I
book right
recognize.
there.
Yes,
pink
the hot
cover.
pink book.
Yes, yes. So we're
So
big,
Judy.
yes. Big fans of Judy. If you think back to when you made your first keynote speech, what were your emotions and what was the speech about?
Oh my gosh. Well, the speech was about young professional success. So I had just graduated university and I was really active in meeting professionals international. And I was that go-getter that wanted to connect with everybody and volunteer wherever I could. And my career took off in a great way because of that type of energy. So I was inspired to apply to speak for the first time and share that experience with other people and help them learn how to grow in their careers and start out the right way as young people and young professionals. So that was the first experience that I ever had really speaking in front of a group of strangers. I'm sure I was nervous. I still get nervous. I always get a little bit antsy right before I go on. So maybe, the half hour leading up to when I'm going to speak, or even the few minutes before I walk up on stage, I start to get those butterflies. But it takes just even 10 to 15 seconds before I transition into my zone, and I just feel the audience. I feel the vibe. I'm excited to be there, and the butterflies go away.
All right. I love it. Now, you are very, very young to got into the speaking kind of space so soon. What advice would you give younger professionals who are looking to kind of follow in your footsteps and get to speaking, not waiting till later in their career to start speaking?
So I would say that there's no perfect way to get started. So it's important for you to just practice, and it's a skill. It's something that you have to sharpen. It's something that you have to hone, and it's important to, even whether it's a group of 10 people or a group of 2 people or a group of 50, it's important to feel comfortable speaking up, and that extends far beyond the stage. Being a professional speaker, that also transcends nicely into, smaller group settings like a board meeting, or, anytime that you're able to actually practice speaking in front of people, count it. And then the other thing I would say is, no idea is necessarily a bad idea. I'm sure that it could turn into something that's weird, but any idea that you have that you feel like will somehow help other people grow or learn something new or create some kind of awareness, that's a good idea. So it's worth sharing, and it's worth experimenting with the different thoughts that you have and the different experiences you have, and just voicing them to your friends, to family members, to your coworkers, and then putting yourself out there and really just applying for speaking opportunities. So a lot of people don't realize that you actually can fill out proposals and submit them to a variety of different conferences in all industries all across the world. And everybody does it. So just coming up with a short description of your idea, putting your name out there, and then seeing what happens and saying yes to those opportunities, that's the best way to get started. And then I would also add, Amani, that it's not always paid. So take those opportunities to actually build your brand. That's how you are going to be able to get that experience, build that network, and start to create that reputation as a speaker that's really good and really powerful and really impactful. You have to put yourself out there and not necessarily expect anything in return. You just have to try.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely got to put yourself out there. Now, in your opinion, what's important for creative professionals such as yourself or myself to succeed in today's business environment?
Well, today's business environment is a hot mess. So I would say the most important thing for me so far in this crazy world that we're living in is being consistent. So if you've committed to building a business or you've committed to a new venture that you wanted to try out and then coronavirus hit and everything changed and we're all quarantined and it's a crazy world, it's important to fall back and remember the why behind your business idea or the passion that you wanted to pursue and just keep moving forward. It doesn't matter if you do something really small one day and then you have a super productive day the next day. It's just important that you do something. So one of the changes I've actually made since quarantine, because, and let me back up here for a second, I really only launched my entrepreneurial journey this year.
Yeah.
So as of January 1st, this was it. This was the big leap of faith that I had been, excited to take. And then it pretty much all crashed and burned in March when when coronavirus hit. And it was really tough. It was really tough when it's so funny because the things I was stressed about before COVID-19 happened, things like, how much money am I going to make this month? How much money am I going to make this year? Questions like that. I look back a couple months ago and I'm like, wow, I actually was doing okay. I was doing pretty darn well and I was so stressed out. And then COVID hit and all events were canceling or postponing or dropping sessions and going virtual. And all of my world just completely turned upside down. And so something that I had to do for myself was to pull myself out of that state of shock and disappointment, was to start holding myself accountable for what I was doing every day. And again, it didn't have to be that I was doing anything significant, but I had to be doing something every day to move forward and to make sure that I was not only pushing my business forward, and not every day was about business, but that I was making sure that I was in a good place with my mental health and connecting with people, and that I was still doing things that were making me a stronger, better person.
Yeah. Yeah. What was it about the year 2020 that inspired you to go out on your own at the beginning of this year?
It had nothing to do with, going into a new decade or anything like that. Although that's a pretty beautiful poetic way to start a new chapter. But it really had nothing to do with that. It just, I've been side hustling for so long, and I've been speaking on the side for years, and it got to a point where I started to have to turn things down that I didn't want to turn down. So I've been working full time pretty much my whole career. And I would use vacation days and I would use weekends just to be able to speak and to jump on a plane and quickly fly somewhere and get on a stage, speak and fly home and then work the next day. And there were so many days where I either had to say no, or it was such a tight fit to be able to get that in my schedule, where I would take a red-eye flight and, maybe I would land at 2 or 3 in the morning, and then I would get up at 6 and then go speak and then get back on a plane. So it just, for me, that was a big part of it. It was that I felt like I was doing enough on the side, both financially and with my time, that I was ready to invest and make that my full-time career. And then, on the other side, there were so many other factors. So things like feeling frustrated that I couldn't define my own value. And I mean that financially, and I mean that professionally, where I just felt limited by working for somebody else. And I felt limited by when I would fight for, maybe a higher salary, or I would fight to get my foot in the door for certain opportunities. There were times when I would be turned away or shut down, and it just felt like I was hitting so many walls that if I were my own boss, yes, there are definitely challenges, and I have learned a lot of the new ones, but there were also greater opportunities to define my own value and to create and build and be responsible for the future that I wanted to build.
Interesting. I'm curious, where does your interest in technology come from?
Well, so I worked for EventMobi, which is a mobile app event technology company, and I did their public relations and their brand marketing. And so I wouldn't even really say it's a huge interest in technology. It's just that I kind of fell into it, and then I realized how much power you have as a as a professional, really, if you understand technology and if you keep up with it. And so I feel like I've stayed in touch with a lot of the technology community, especially within our space, because I realized that it's always changing, it's always evolving, and it's always needed. And especially looking at a time like this, technology is more important than ever. So I'm so grateful for the background that I have and the curiosity that's been developed about, how can I educate myself? How can I make sure that I know how to do a virtual event, and how I know, or how to podcast and stuff like
Right.
that. So
Yeah.
it's been super helpful for me, but I wouldn't say I'm not passionate about it. Yeah.
All right. More passionate about corn, but I get it. It's cool. what,
Yeah.
what do you feel was the turning point to your career when you finally recognized this is what I'm here to do and I'm off and running?
Oh, wow. Honestly, this might sound a little bit backwards. The real turning point for me wasn't when I decided that I was gonna become my own boss. It wasn't that. I think the turning point has been over the past couple of months where I've realized that it honestly would be easier for me to go and find another job. It would be easier for me to fall back and go back to my old life of working for somebody else. And I think the turning point for me was choosing financial instability and choosing the road that I hadn't traveled yet. And I think it's because I realized how passionate I am, and it's also been because of the people who have encouraged me. So a lot of people within the past couple of months, they know my situation, they know how much has changed in my life, and they've reached out and they've just given me extra support and extra advice and words of encouragement. And it's those things, I think, that helped lift me up at a time where I realized I was at a fork in the road and I could easily go back to something that was more comfortable, but I chose to move forward and continue to take the risk, even in an environment that was far riskier than I'd ever imagined it would be.
Most people choose comfort, choose the kind of safe route. You did not choose that. How are you able to stay motivated and keep a level head and not completely kind of just crash and burn? Because that happens to people, and many people in your same situation would have gone back and just gotten their old job.
I love being comfortable. Don't get me wrong. I actually love being comfortable, and my family will make fun of me for that, because there is nothing that I love more than an easy day, than just relaxing and having a paycheck come in that I don't have to really think about. And I to be honest, probably prefer that type of feeling. But I think what's helped push me are the people in my life who have pushed themselves. So family members and close friends. Sarah Solomon Dodden is a good friend of mine, and she is also an entrepreneur, and she gave me all of the real talk that she possibly could about the ugly and challenging side of entrepreneurship. And I watch her do it so beautifully, and you would never even really know a lot of the time what the challenges she's facing are.
Mhm.
But it's looking at people like Sarah and other people in my life who I know are going through it, and they're riding that roller coaster, but they're winning. They're continuing to stay consistent, and they're doing it really well, and they're reaping the benefits of their hard work. And that, to me, is the most inspiring reason for me to just keep pushing through the discomfort.
Yeah, yeah, keep going. I agree 100%. What is something that scares you?
Oh, so much. I this question's tough for me because I think a lot of what people might consider trivial things scare me, but I think the thing that scares me the most is wasting my life. I
Mhm.
think it's knowing that I do have a lot of potential to make a difference. I think that if I were to never explore that and never really work hard to tap into that potential or what that could be, I think that would be my biggest regret. And I think that would scare me the most, is knowing that, or believing that we only have this one life, and what are we going to do with it? Who are we going to impact? And how are we going to spend our time? And I think the thing that scares me the most is if I were to look back on my life and say, what if I'd done things differently? What if I had taken that risk? And that's not a risk that I think is worth taking.
Yeah, yeah. No regrets. No regrets. I definitely agree with you there as well. Now, the industry that you're in, the professional speaking, coaching industry is very crowded. How do you rise above all the noise and distinguish yourself from the competition?
So I agree. The space of coaching is very, very crowded. I I don't know that I have found like the secret vibe to being the most, impressive, attractive, sought after coach out there. But what I will say that I have been practicing is just being myself. So I'll look at other influencers and I'll look at other coaches and I'll see what they're doing. And I feel like there's a pressure to repeat what they're doing, the words they're using, the style of their Instagram, that kind of thing. And I think what I have decided to do is just to stay true to who I am. So to talk about things that matter to me, to be really upfront about the experiences that I have, because I know that if I am authentic in my approach, that I will attract the right people as my clients. So even if it's not that I have this crazy influx of clients coming my way asking me to coach them, it's that I'm having people connect with me because they feel like I have something to offer them because they've had a similar experience and they want to know how I was able to move past it and be strategic. So I think for me the secret really is just being myself and fine-tuning along the way. So if I'm seeing that something's not working, making sure that I'm paying attention to that and moving forward. And even with people who've decided not to be clients of mine. So I had someone recently who reached out and we talked back and forth and I felt like the conversation went great. And it did. We really did connect, but she felt like somebody suited her needs better as a coach. And so I was courageous enough to ask her if there was something that maybe I hadn't presented to her that would have made her lean more toward working with me because I really liked her a lot and she reciprocated those thoughts as well. And she told me, and it was such a simple thing. Like I could have easily done that for her. I could have put some thoughts on paper in a different way to make sure that she felt like she had, a specific path mapped out for her. And now I know. So it's just being brave enough to ask those questions and not be afraid of feedback. Though that is something that scares me, actually. One of the one of the things that makes me sweat is, oh my God, speaker evaluation forms. Those make me sweat.
Yeah.
I hate them, but I read every single comment because I know that there are things that I need to work on, and I am a flawed human. I'm a flawed speaker, so I know I can always improve. But I hate reading them, and sometimes the comments have nothing to do with you, and they can be a little mean. So I always have to laugh at them, and brush it off and just keep moving forward. But that's also something that scares me.
Yeah, fair enough. One of my bosses in the past used to always say feedback is a gift. So we will keep that in mind as we get our evaluation forms. Shout out to Michelle Johnson. She's calling, I think she's saying hi to us from
Hi,
Northeast.
Michelle.
I think she's in the Northeast. So yeah. How has a failure or an apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours?
Oh. Ooh. Okay, so this is the hardest question you've asked. I don't think I have a favorite failure. I don't think any failure that I have endured, though, yes, all failure teaches me lessons for sure, but it never feels good. So I'm not going to say that I necessarily have a favorite failure. I would say one of my greatest failures, and this isn't a specific moment, this is a series of moments. One of my greatest regrets in my life, and most specifically in my career, is that I haven't always spoken up on my own behalf. So I think I know I've failed myself in the past where I have been taken advantage of, or somebody has treated me wrongfully, or I've been screwed over, or somebody walked over me. And I try to be a nice person. So I think sometimes that gets in the way of me just being honest and giving feedback. And I'm a people pleaser. I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I'm a people first person. But I think that because I tend to put other people first, I put myself second. And that's great a lot of times, but there are also times where that doesn't work and you have to put yourself first and you have to speak up because you're going to get walked over and you're not going to get what you actually need at the end of the day. So if I look back, especially at the previous jobs that I've had, my biggest regret and where I failed myself has definitely been those moments where I should have just sooner rather than later stood up for myself and spoken up.
What are maybe one or two tips that you have for people that will help them put themselves first that you might be trying to practice yourself?
So I think it's helpful to talk to a friend, or a partner or a family member. I think it's don't bottle up those emotions or that come from those experiences where you feel like you should have spoken up. It's important for you to talk it out with someone that you're comfortable with first, and then take it to that person when that time is right. I also would suggest not waiting. So even if you want to run it by a friend first and talk to them about your experience, don't let it fester, because the more that you don't speak up, the more that people see a pattern. They see that they can take advantage of you. They see that you're not going to speak up, so they can ask you to maybe take on their work for them, or they're not going to promote you. They're going to promote someone who maybe would, cause a little bit more of a shift in the workplace because they were unhappy. So I would suggest definitely talking it out with people that are close to you, and then just being courageous, just actually seizing the opportunity to have something better for yourself and to become someone who's stronger. Because the more that you do speak up, the more that you get comfortable. And for me, even though I'm hyper aware of the fact that I have needed to work on this in the past, I also know that I have to work on it now. So I'm still growing. I'm still trying to make sure that I am standing up when it counts and when it matters, but also doing it with a sense of grace and respect and empathy matters. So you also have to remember that the person that you feel is wronging you may not be aware of what they're doing, but they also may be going through their own stuff. Each person has their own experiences. They have their own story, and they are the way that they are for a multitude of reasons. So having that perspective and approaching conversations with patience and compassion is never going to fail you.
Yeah, definitely. We have a question from our audience right here, Libby. Hi, Libby. So Libby wants to know, what do you see for our industry 6 months from now and then 12 months from now? Because there are a lot of blurred lines today. What are your thoughts on that?
So 6 months from now, that would put us at the beginning of November. I think 6 months from now, fingers are crossed, and actually that's when Meeting Professionals International, WEC, is rescheduled for. So fingers crossed. We have seen a lot of our industry partners who put on these larger conferences. We've seen them put newer safety precautions into place, and it's going to be very different. So I don't think that we're going to be back to normal anytime soon, but I hope that our industry partners are putting safety and people first, and then they're starting to try things out in ways that are still safe. So in 6 months, I think that we will be meeting differently, but I think that we will be meeting face to face again. In 12 months, my hope is that we're as close to normal as possible for my own selfish purposes and for everybody else that's struggling in the industry. So if I had to guess, I think in 12 months, we're going to be hopefully pretty close to back to some kind of sort of what used to be called normal.
Yeah, good answer. Now, as I look at your receipts, as we call them, your awards, you've gotten many, many awards. Some of my favorites are MPI Rise Award. You were inducted into the Women in Events Hall of Fame. You got the MPI Chairman's Award. You were one of the youngest people to ever be on the international board for MPI. So you've gotten a lot of awards and recognition. But then at the same part, you also acquire more critics, or haters, as we call them. How do you handle your critics?
Oh, haters gonna hate. There are always going to be haters. You just gotta love your haters. Show love to everybody. Yeah, people 100% will always judge you. People, not everybody, but there will always be one. And that actually comes back to the speaker evaluation forms that we were talking about. Just assume there's going to be a hater. There's always one. You just kind of got to brush it off and keep moving forward. It's funny because I just had this conversation with a couple girlfriends the other day about the fact that I am actually a very sensitive person. So as tough as I may sound, taking a stage in front of a couple thousand people and sharing a vulnerable story or an experience that's happened to me in the past or something, I'm very, very sensitive. So something that I've had to work on is taking criticism here and not here.
Yeah.
So making sure that I am acknowledging the things that are productive and listening to them. And it takes me a minute, especially if it's harsh, it takes me a minute to filter it and make sure that I'm pulling out the stuff that I really do need to hear. But I also have to filter out the emotional side. So my feelings get hurt just like anybody else, and I have to take a second to dismiss the if there are mean words that are used or if there's judgment that's shown. I have to just look away. And sometimes I'll talk to people about it and then we'll laugh about it together and we high five and we're like, let's go make our positive impact and keep pushing forward.
Yeah. I think we all have a little sensitive part in us, so I appreciate you sharing that as well. And you spoke about vulnerability, which leads us to our next question. Tell us about the darkest time in your life, how you got through that, and what did you learn from that experience?
Oh, I'm getting hot thinking about this. So, oh, my chest gets like pink and hot when I get nervous or upset. Not upset, but triggering. So, I don't know if Michelle Johnson is still out there, but love you, Michelle. One of the toughest moments that I have faced was actually getting let go from my first job.
Mm.
And Michelle and I used to actually work together, and I love her, and she knows the whole story. But essentially, I had uprooted my life after graduating from Central Michigan University, and I moved to Boston, and I didn't know anybody there, which truthfully was the hardest part of starting that chapter. It wasn't
Mhm.
starting a new job. It wasn't anything like that. It was actually just feeling alone and not really knowing how to build a network and build a circle of people that you're really connected with, because that takes time. It's not an instantly validating experience. So the toughest thing for me was when I was working in Boston. I worked for an events agency out there as an event coordinator. And actually, 3 weeks before I got let go from that job, I was one of the people that was on the street on Boylston in Boston during the Boston
Mm.
Marathon bombings. So that time in my life was very, very tough. It was very tough going through something as life-changing as and traumatic as experiencing a terrorist attack, to then being let go a few weeks later and already not really feeling like I had that support that maybe I did back home. It was really hard. When you look at your life, you never pictured tragedy. You're scared of tragedy, but you never specifically imagine what could possibly happen to change you in that moment a very negative way. So for me, that time was very dark. And I ended up moving back home to Michigan. I stayed with my parents. I let them hug me like crazy. And I took a few months to heal, and then I moved on to the next chapter of my life. But that was very difficult. So my heart goes out to anybody who has experienced anything like that.
Many people who suffer through trauma, even one trauma, would just kind of shut down. You kind of suffered through two traumas back to back. You kind of collected yourself, but then you kept going and have, achieved even higher heights. How were you able to do that?
I don't think I gave myself a choice. I
Mhm.
think because and I am so lucky to have an amazing support system in my friends and my family, and they were a huge part of that moving forward process. But I really don't think that I gave myself a choice. I think I just started thinking about what was next. And I think that in a way is a great thing because I was able to move forward. But I would also say that I think I could have taken a little bit of time to heal. And I don't know that, even though I took a couple months off in the summer, I don't know that I necessarily took the time to mend what really truly was damaged. I think I just took a little bit of time, relaxed a little bit, and then pushed forward. So I'm very grateful for the people who supported me, and for the fact that I decided to be driven enough to move forward. But I would also say that it's important to not just keep pushing. So if you do go through something traumatic, that you have to dig deep and you have to ask for help and you have to really look in those dark places to make sure that you bring light into that area before you try to grow and try to evolve, because essentially you're building a new structure on a broken foundation.
Yeah, exactly. Who was the most influential person for you growing up?
My dad. My dad was definitely the most influential. Daddy's girl all the way. I come from a family of 3 girls. I'm the middle sister.
Okay.
And I was his mini me, for better or for worse. And I always wanted his approval. People nowadays might call those daddy issues, but I always wanted his approval. And I still do to this day. If I'm gonna get excited about anybody giving me positive feedback, it's my dad. He's the
Good.
one, his feedback means the most to me.
Understood. I'm going to read a quote that you have shared many times that I love, and I want to figure out why it resonates with you. It's by our friend Wayne Dyer. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Why does that resonate with you?
So I am a big fan of empathy and using and practicing and growing empathy within yourself, understanding that, again, everybody has their own experiences and they have their own story. And I'm a firm believer that if you take the time to think differently, to listen to other people's experiences and stories, and to consider and practice shifting your perspective, that you, in fact, become a better person, that you're a more approachable person, and that you're a person who has more power to impact the people around you. So even looking at right now, the fact that we're all stuck at home, nobody's really getting on planes and traveling anywhere. The reason why I'm most excited to get back on a plane and to go travel somewhere new is because I know the value that comes with experiencing new cultures and meeting new people. And I think it's so important that we take that time to understand how people feel. Honestly, Imani, I think the best example I can give of this right now is obviously politics. It's we're living in the United States. We're extremely divided for the most part, and it's so easy to pick a team. And most people expect you to pick a team. They expect you to pick a side and stick to that side and align with everything that's being said. And I think it's really important to, again, consider why people feel a certain way, to listen to people and not speak. And then when you feel like you've formed an idea that you'd like to share, to say it respectfully.
Yeah. Great explanation for a great quote. Thank you. What do you find easy to do that your friends find hard to do?
So this may sound repetitive, but speaking, it's definitely speaking. I have friends who are completely terrified, family members too, that are like, I literally would never, ever want to get up on a stage and do what you do. How do you do it? Even giving a speech at a wedding, my friends will tell me how much anxiety they have around it. And it's feels so natural to me that I sometimes forget that for other people, it's absolutely terrifying.
Right. Yeah. And then on the flip side, what would you like to be better at?
So many things. There are so many things that I would love to be great at everything. That'd be awesome. Something that I would like to work on is tapping into more of my creative side. So I like to sing. I'm super shy about it, so I'm definitely not going to do it on this podcast. I love to draw. I love to paint, but I don't really make time for it. And something actually that bugs me sometimes is that if people ask me what my hobby is, I'm like, rosé, does that count? And I love wine. I love trying new foods. I'm a huge foodie. I love going out with my girlfriends and, going to restaurants and stuff. But when people ask me about a hobby, I'm like, I work a lot and that's not a hobby. And I socialize a lot, but that's not really a hobby. So if I could be better at anything, it would be tapping into more of that artistic, creative side of myself.
Got it. Now, have you read the book The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron?
No, I haven't.
Okay, one of my favorites. I'll reach back here and give it. So this is an amazing book. right here. And it kind of speaks to how it can help you unlock exactly what you just described, kind of being more creative, singing, drawing. So we're going to talk offline about how you can acquire this, but this would be a great exercise for you. So for
Oh,
sure.
perfect.
Yeah, for
Yay.
sure.
Thanks, Amani.
Awesome. Of course, here to help. Now, when you turned 21, you were still at Central Michigan?
Yes.
All right, so
Yes.
we're going to go back and talk to 21-year-old Courtney and give her advice based on what you know now. What advice would you give your younger self?
You know, be humble. I would tell myself that, girl, you do not know it all. And as much as you think that you have all the answers, you probably have some, but you have so much to learn. That would be one thing. And then I would also say to, not take things so personally. And that's something that I work on now too. But don't always read into everything. Yes, listen to your gut. And yes, Courtney, you are highly emotionally intelligent. But that doesn't mean that you have to read into things and make things more than what they are. So that is what I would tell my previous version of myself.
That's some excellent advice. Well said. What is the one lesson in life that took you the longest to learn?
Ooh, truly, I think that I would probably go back to speaking up, which I know we talked about at the beginning of this conversation. But I think that the lesson that's taken me the longest to learn is, and it's something I have to tell myself all the time, is to be confident in what I bring to the table, what I believe in, and my value, and to continually grow and encourage other people to speak up too. I think there are way more people that are afraid to speak up or that hold back than there are people who speak up with full confidence.
Yeah, definitely. Every great person has a sentence. What is your sentence? For example, my sentence is I love to help people unlock their creativity by teaching them how to DJ. What is your sentence?
So I actually have an easy answer to this. My sentence is build an empire, leave a legacy. I have no idea where that came from, Amani, but I have been saying that since really I was 22-ish. And to me, that means that again goes back to my belief that we all have a purpose and we have an opportunity to use our unique skills and strengths and experiences to change the world and to positively impact people. So build an empire, leave a legacy to me means build something that's helpful to the world and then leave it behind so that people can make it better and that they can use it to make themselves better.
Well said. Well said. What is one new habit that you've added to your daily routine in the past year or so that has been most beneficial?
The most beneficial change that I think I have made is holding myself accountable. And that goes back to how am I spending my time every day, especially in quarantine? How am I
Right.
spending my time every day? Who am I investing in and what am I focused on? And just monitoring what exactly I'm doing. I literally made a spreadsheet for myself that's color coded that has different categories of things that I chose that I felt like would help me grow and become a better version of myself. So that could be, meditation, podcasting, reading. I actually am not a huge reader. I used to be, but I fell off that horse. So I'm trying to bring that back. It could be exercise. For me, one category that I've like blown out of the water is connecting with people. So having a conversation, my goal, I think, was to have like maybe 3 calls a week. I have like 3 calls a day with people now, friends I
Right.
haven't caught up with in a while, people like you. Just it's been so important for me to use that little spreadsheet that works for me to know exactly what I'm doing. That way every day I feel like I've been accomplished because I have. I look and I see I've been productive in these ways and I know that these will pay off in the long haul.
Good, good. Now, I know you said you fell off the reading horse, but we are very big readers here on the podcast. So, if there was 1, 2, or 3 books you feel people should stop what they're doing right now and start to read them immediately, what books come to mind?
So there are 2 books that come to mind. The first is Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. Love it. It centers around the importance of vulnerability and really what vulnerability is. And something that really stuck with me from that book was the idea that you can never live your life or even moments of your life to their fullest if you're not vulnerable. So I found that book to be completely life-changing. And then the second book that I'll recommend is called Polishing Our Pearl of Greatest Price, Discovering Your Purpose. And this book actually encouraged me to take the leap of faith and the jump into entrepreneurship that I did earlier this year. So it's more of a guided, reflective journal type of read. So it's really good to even just take, a chapter a day and ask yourself the questions that are being asked of you in the book. And just think about what you're doing with your life and what you think your purpose is. And there's no right or wrong answer, but it's just meant to help you think a little bit differently than you normally would. And that book, my friend, is written by Deb Stanley, who is my mama.
All right. We'll definitely put it all in the show notes. I love it. Well done. What's been the best advice you've ever received?
Oof. I think that it's okay. So it's not necessarily advice. It's more of a warning, if you want to call it that. But I'm going to go with this. So one of my most amazing people in my life and the first true mentor that I ever had is Trevor Louie. He's based in Toronto, Canada, and he's super involved in the industry. He's a chef. He started up all these amazing restaurants in Toronto. Trevor has been a guiding light in my life since we met probably almost a decade ago now. And something that he told me, and again, it wasn't advice, it was more of a reality check, was when I considered speaking up, and again, that's something that I am constantly working on. When I considered speaking up about being sexually harassed by a fellow industry board member, I went to Trevor and I talked to him about it. And he said to me, not everyone is going to be on your side. Not everyone is going to believe you. And not everybody is going to stick with you if you are going to speak up and report something that happened to you. And he gave me his full support without question. Right. But that was a turning point in that really important and scary moment in my life and in my career where I had to face the music and I had to understand what the consequences of speaking up could look like. And what ended up happening after I reported it was exactly what Trevor said. Some people were really weird toward me if they had heard about the experience that I reported. Some people just kind of, disconnected and I didn't really hear from them again, and that was fine. And then most people supported me, and a lot of people actually that had heard about what happened or when I started speaking more openly about the experience also had experiences to share and felt more comfortable because somebody else had spoken up first. So that would be not necessarily the piece of advice, but I would say the reality check that really changed my life.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent advice by Trevor too. We're going to paint a picture for you. You're walking out to do the headlining keynote speech at WEC. So Courtney's coming to the stage. What song is playing as you walk out on the stage?
Oh, this is such a good question. Okay, so I think I would probably play... Okay, so I have a couple songs. I'm going to cheat. One would be the song Diva by Beyonce.
Okay.
Great song.
Yes.
Diva is the female version of a hustler, by the way. And then I would say I would probably play one of two Nicki Minaj songs. So I would either play Blazin' with Kanye West, or I would play I'm the Best, which sounds egotistical, but it's a song that really pumps me up. So it would be one of those three songs.
Okay, we'll figure out which one we're going to put in there, and nice selections. Well done again. I'm curious, out of the many awards that you have received so far in a very young career, which one means the most to you?
The award that has meant the most to me would probably be the MPI Chairman's Award. That award is only given to one member globally a year, and it's given to an individual from the chairman of the MPI International Board of Directors. So that year, the chair of the board was Michael Dominguez.
Yes.
And I had no idea. I actually had no idea. And I remember that morning I was sharing a room with one of my industry friends, and I was getting ready, and she told me I needed to dry my hair. And I was like, "Oh, it'll air dry. It'll be fine. We'll be totally fine." And she was like, she's so nice. And she was like, "No, I really would encourage you to dry your hair. And I don't want to look at you when I'm saying that." She's like on the other side of the bathroom door, "But please dry your hair." And I was like, "Geez, okay. Didn't realize it was going to be this kind of day, but I'll dry my hair." So I did, thankfully. And I was just shocked. I had no idea that Mike would ever consider me for that kind of recognition. And when Mike told me more about why he did decide to give me that amazing honor, was because he felt that I had supported and encouraged him so much in his role. And at this point, Mike and I had been friends and via email, and I would send him notes every now and then if I saw something come out where, I thought he did something really great for the community and for the industry. I just wanted him to know. And little did I know that I was actually making an impact on him. And I think that that's so cool. And we do that stuff all the time, like the more support that you show people and the more that you encourage people, you don't expect a return. You don't expect a high five because you were nice to somebody, but it does matter and it does make an impact. And sometimes you see it and most times you don't. But I think that's why that award to me was the coolest.
Yes, I agree. Congrats. Tell the people how they can find you online. Where do you like to live on social media? Kind of explain to people how they can reach you.
So I just aligned all of my handles on social media. So there aren't 5 different ones you have to follow. So you can find me at Courtney on Stage on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. You can find me on my personal profile on LinkedIn. So just Courtney Stanley. I've become pretty active these days as I'm trying to build my business and my community. So I would love if you followed me and connected with me, and I would love to get to know you.
Yes, we have it going on the ticker below. So please follow Courtney. She's amazing in person and online. And before I ask the final question, just want to say, first of all, thanks for appearing on the show. I really admire your courage. I really admire your passion and consistency in the industry. And I'm glad we've had a chance to meet kind of recently, and definitely looking forward to working with you more in the future. But just keep doing what you're doing. I think that you are like one of these up and coming, and not even up and coming. You're here like a young leader that we're all like aspiring to kind of follow. So just keep going, and keep being like the bridge for everyone in the community. And I'm just proud of you and happy to know you. And we let our guests leave us with any last minute words of wisdom or advice. So I'll say thank you again and allow you to take us home.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Amani, for having me on. And like you mentioned, we are kind of newfound friends, even though I've seen your name on a lot of things over the years. So it's good to get to know you better. It's been a real pleasure for me. And if there's anything that I would say, just some final words to leave with anybody watching, it would be to know how great you are. And I know that sounds so ridiculous to say, but just know how great you are. You're awesome. Nobody else is like you. You have so many amazing skills and strengths and experiences, and the world needs the good stuff that you bring. So I know that these are some dark days that we've been facing, and not every day is good. Not every day is bad either, which is a blessing. But just remember how much you have to offer the world, and that this too shall pass.
Done. Thank you. All right, we're good.